Hi, friends. Recently, someone in a comment asked me that, Prabir, you've been in the civil service and you've been in the corporate. What do you find as the key differences in leadership demands and practices between leaders of the government and leaders in the corporate sector? And I just thought I'll do a short response to that question. One of the big things is that the constraints with which a government leader has to work, a civil servant has to deliver, is far more than the private sector. The expanse is wider. In the corporate sector, it's deeper, it's narrower but deeper. In the government, everything that you do is circumscribed by a web of rules, regulations, acts, legislations, courts, tribunals, and so on and so forth. It's still more complex. It's much simpler when you do it in the context of a company, because in the worst case, it's the board and it largely gets done. And therefore, some things that I have respected about my first life, and which hopefully I've carried and benefited from, is your ability to influence. A lot of what gets done is through influence, not by laws, rules, and legislation. There are more reasons for you to say no than to say yes. And I think it builds a degree of influencing that is sharper in the corporate than I have found in the private sector. The second thing that I think is very important, a learning that I have taken, is you do it with more constraints in the government. I can't reward, promote, incentivize a guy ahead of his or her time. It's your job. Look at the COVID reality. The policeman who's trying to help manage things is not going to get a single penny more. But everything has all of us sitting in our drawing rooms commenting. It's very easy to comment and critique. It's very difficult to go out and do it. And I think, therefore, the ability to be a leader of men and women is far more challenging, but it's a great opportunity in the government because it really calls you to be inspiring in your leadership. And the third thing that I think is very important for us to learn from the government is, here in the corporate sector, a manager goes, a whole ecosystem often collapses, crumbles, people leave because people have a choice. In the government, every 2 years or 3 years, the officer is rotated, but the institutional fabric remains strong. And every officer only strengthens it. You don't look back and say, when I was there, I did this, and why has someone changed that? You did what was right at that time. And therefore, the so-called knowledge management that we talk about in the corporate sector, I think it's a very natural fabric in the way the civil service, the government works. And I think in these ways, in moments of crisis, the sense of ownership, the decision, the split-second decision that you take has far wider implications, ramifications, and risks than in the corporate world. And if you've been in that situation and your formative years has been like that, in many times the corporate is more than a game of politics and political individual egos to go through, rather than moments of great substance. So a little angular bias view maybe towards the civil service and that experience, but that is really the big contrast that I find between the government and the private sector leaders.